Yeah. How are we all doing? Welcome to the teams. I haven't got a Scooby where young Leg Dog is. I haven't got a Scooby where he is. So it's just me. I hope we're all doing really well. Tell you what, I'm a pro. I could go solo. I'm like Jason Derulo, but I don't say my own name. Good day to everyone. I hope we're all doing well. Good day to ZZ11 Games. How you doing? The Blue Baggers, Big Billy, Up the Baggers. You know it. Paul Hill, Jacana, legend of these type of things. Lockie Jack. And here he is. Look, tell you what, fucking late as always. Look at him. See me after class. It's like, what? How you doing?
Oh, mate, I'm fantastic. I've just been at the pub. We've had a going away for a work colleague. I'm ready to do some teams. I've had a couple of beers and I'm excited, Pom.
That's fucking all right for you, eh? Do you know what I mean? Pom just having to fucking do this solo like he's, Jason Derulo.
Honestly, Pom, I'm just glad you're here. I thought you'd be dead. I'm excited that we're both here together. We've both exceeded expectations the last couple of weeks. That's all I'll say.
Mate, I've got to say, do you know what I mean? Who would have thought you can get COVID from doing a co-host via
I know.
Via this?
I've infected you from 50 kilometers away, Pom. It's crazy.
Mate, well, I mean, luckily I can survive. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad all the chat is here. Chat is pumped by the look of it as well. Chat is pumped. Big game, obviously, coming up. Firstly, obviously, it's the Carlton Respects games. You don't often hear me get political, but something that I can definitely get behind. I've got to be careful with you because you take the piss when I
Oh no, that was one time.
But obviously, do you know what I mean? A wonderful cause, probably in my opinion. Just quickly, your thoughts and the audience thoughts. Is Carlton's Orange Edge Guernsey the best Guernsey in Australian sport? Because I am going to put my neck on the line and say I think it is the best I've ever seen.
If you take out our sleeved pure, actually, what was it? Was it what did they call it that year where it was the blackout jersey, but it was like the blue out jersey? That was the best jersey ever made. Guernsey ever made. The Carlton Respects is a close second.
The Streets of Lygon.
Yeah, that was first. The Carlton Respects is close second. Agree, Pom. It's a cause that I'm 100% behind. Now, my question, Pom, is this going to be our first win in the Carlton Respects Guernsey? Because I know we've struggled in the past.
Mate, you've got more chance of me passing away from this COVID than you have of Carlton losing against St Kilda. St
Kilda are no good. I'll say that.
You know what? I've really called the universe there, haven't I? I've really tempted. If I'm not here next week, I've only got myself to blame.
Well, Carlton are going to win or you're going to die. Either way, it's going to be good for the content. It's going to be good for the ratings. And we'll keep doing this show one way or another. So, Pom, my hope is that we win and you live. That's the best scenario that we can come up with.
Mate, I'll be fine. As long as I keep having cups of tea, I'll be fine. Obviously, we know that St Kilda, interesting facts about St Kilda, first 4 rounds, they were one of the number 1 sides in the comp statistically. In the last 4 rounds now, they're wedged between North and West Coast for poorness in a variety of stats. So, really, this game here, although you'll never hear me use the term danger game because I wouldn't do it, this game on paper really does say Carlton stick to their system and their structure. They should get up quite considerably.
Yeah, look, I'm with you, Pom. I know I've been shit talking St Kilda all week. I tipped Essendon over them. I knew that win was going to come. I've been giving them absolute nonsense, but they do match up well against us. Statistically, they match up well against us this year, but this is a game I will be backing us in 100%. But, luckily, Pom, as we've talked about on this show before, it doesn't matter if you and me take the piss because the players won't, and the players are much better at football than us. So they'll execute the game plan and they will get the win over St Kilda. But you're right, on paper, St Kilda do look like they'll match up against us reasonably well.
Mate, spot on. And a great question here from the big Rob, because we are the team, so we should talk teams. Love the show. Please help me out with this. Honey versus Martin. I really think Martin's not going to get any better, but Honey's potential is huge. Over to you, Let Dog, and the audience. Tell me what you think.
Well, it's a very good question. Who was it that asked that question, Pom? Sorry? Robbie.
The legend that is Robbie Varley.
So in my best 22 in a healthy Carlton side, I actually don't have Honey or Martin in my best 22. I've got them both sitting on the outskirts, potentially with Martin being that 23rd man, the sub. I'll put it this way. In a grand final, we're playing for a flag. The Carlton are playing for flag. I think Honey will execute his role exactly as he's instructed to. And I think Jack Martin will either kick 4 goals or have 4 disposals. He'll either win you a premiership or he'll lose you one. As a result, Pom, I actually don't have either in my side. I think the writing on the wall is getting more clear for Jack Martin. And I think, as Robbie has suggested, there's maybe more upside in Honey. But as it currently stands, Pom, I don't have either in my best 22. How do you feel about the team structure with those two?
You don't have either in your best 22?
I don't have either in my best 22.
Jesus, how much did you have to drink, and was it actually legal?
I just think to give you a brief summary, you bring Pito back in. TDK can't come out of the side. He has to go forward. Jack Silvani then plays smaller, and I just don't have room for either of those two guys in my current best 22.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair call. I think Martin, for me, is... How do I say this without sounding nasty? I never want to bag a player. For me, the definition of a downhill skier is Jack Martin. And I think Martin is the type of player that makes you look better when you're 6 goals up. Do you know what I mean? Where what I like about Honey, watching a lot of the VFL and tracking his career for about 3 years when he was in juniors, is he gives you something. So people will look at the game last week and go, oh, but Honey doesn't kick goals. Voss keeps saying this. Forwards, genuinely, his smaller forwards don't kick goals, particularly in a side like Carlton when they're very top-heavy with their key forwards. You're looking for something. So why I think Jack Silvani is the best high-half forward in the competition is because he offers something that creates goals. Personally, I think Josh Honey, 3 or 4 games into this system, I think he is in the best 22. I think that in an ideal world, if you ask Voss, he wants 2 Jack Silvanis on that high half forward. And traditionally, that's what the best teams in the land have done. Players that can drop deep. At the moment, they're trying to manufacture something with Corey Durden to run deep or up the ground and be the conduit. And it doesn't quite work. Where I think Honey is the future. I do think both of them positions, though, aren't priority. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Priority. No. But so I see why you don't have them in the best 22. For me, to accommodate him, Pitternet, I would be looking at trying to get Kemp on McGovern fit. Plowman comes out. Newman then slots to back pocket. And then TDK does what he's done wonderfully and covers the flanks. That's me personally, but... That's 100%. I love Plowman.
100%. My best 22, as you suggested, maybe it's worth going through it at some stage, maybe next week when we've had a bit more preparation. But it to accommodate having a TDK and a Pitternet, you have to sacrifice someone like a Plowman so that a Kemp or a McGovern can play as that third tall. I think, as you've sort of alluded to there, Josh Honey is a worker. Jack Martin is a cherry on top player. I think if you're confident in the first 21 players that you have on field and you think 100% they're going to execute their role, Jack Martin as a 22nd player might just be the edge you need. But if you're not confident in that first 21 players, having a Josh Honey who you know is going to execute his role, you know is going to work really hard, he will get the edge over a Jack Martin. But yes, as I've alluded to, I'm not confident in that first 21 completely. So I actually don't have either in my side. But Maybe that's a job for next week. We can go through our best 22s. I still like Terry. I've got a lot of stock and faith in Jack Martin, but when you look at what he has produced, it's been not consistent enough to be reliable. Having said that, I do fully believe in him, and I think in the best circumstances he could maybe win a Norm Smith. In the best circumstances, I'm not confident at the moment we have the circumstances to create that situation for him.
Mate, Spawn and Alex here, great comment. I was alluding to that. JSOS, I said, he's the best high half forward in the comp and third in the comp behind Cameron and Hawkins. I think he's the perfect link-up man. And if I look at Carlton, I think in an ideal world, if we had two JSOSes either side, it really gives us that avenue of attack. You saw it last week. They played very well going down both wings. I think if you've had that, that's good. Good one here from Matty. And this is what I want to put out to the audience. I actually think if this guy was fit, I reckon he would be flying. Cunningham's anticipated to be what? 2 weeks away? It seems to be the continuous 2 weeks. I wish my boss would accept that. Yeah, I'll be back at work in 2 weeks, mate.
Yeah, so Cunningham's another really interesting player who I did my best. I actually did it last night. I did my best 22. I might go through it with you, Pom, while we're filling some time. Cunningham's not in it, but not because of his talent, just because of his availability. He's 100% in our best 22. I know you've got some really high opinions of him, and we saw it before he got injured that he was flying as that sort of mid who could push forward and impact games. While I bring up my 22, we can go through that. Maybe Pom talk about your opinions of him, but I'm very high on him. The limitation at the moment is his availability.
I think when you look at Cunners, I think the one thing Carlton lack, which Fisher brought you last week, was a guy that can go out wide, play across half forward, and then pinch hit on the ball.
Yeah.
A la like Dustin Martin. Every side has a Dustin Martin type player that's maybe not as good as Dustin, but can impact various parts of the ground as like a break glass in emergency. In my opinion, Cunningham at his best is that X-Factor player that I would love to have that at the moment where you can just say, right, okay, 10 minutes on the ball, make something happen. And Fisher, if you watch that first quarter, Carlton dominated the first quarter last week. They just didn't quite get it in the right areas when they penetrated inside 50. There was a huge change when Fisher came into that second quarter on the ball and played a lot on the ball in the second, that he's running and he's run and carry and his real willingness to be really direct really brought that game open. And I just think that Cunners, for me, if you had that other layer, would be sexy, would be incredibly sexy in this team.
Oh, mate, there's a world where, we have Fisher and Cunningham in our midfield, and we're a very dynamic and very different side to what we currently are. At the moment, we're a slower midfield that moves the ball by hand, generates kick mark from the clearance. You add a Cunningham and a Fisher, one of them running off the back of a stoppage. It adds another dynamic to your team, and I'm with you. He's in my best 22 if fit and healthy. I don't have him in there at the moment. I might just quickly, Pom, derail the show for a bit and run through what I've projected as my best 22. If everyone, with the exception of those who have been, injured for a long time, is. So I've got Zach Williams playing that Boyd / Williams role. Wiedering, McGovern, Doherty, Young, Sard. I think that's pretty standard. Walsh, Cripps, O'Brien, Silvani, Curnow, Fisher, Owies, Mackay, Durden. On the ball, Pitnet, Hewitt, Chera, interchange. I've got Nunes and Newman, who could be arguable, but I think they offer some real flexibility. DeConning and Matt Kennedy. I think unlucky in that is that best 22 is guys like Cunningham, who's currently injured, Boyd, Jack Martin, and Josh Honey. I think they're the main guys that are missing out. But that best 22 reads as pretty solid to me, Pommy.
So it's solid. I think that there's about 28 players when fully fit.
Yeah.
All of the best 2022, which I think makes it very interesting next year, doesn't it? Very interesting next year if they can have a pre-season. If Kemp starts to fly, we know that O'Keefe has talked about him being a permanent swingman. I think that's huge for Carlton moving forward because it gives another rotation. I think the talk is the McGovern wants to be a pinch hit swingman, so I think it's a shootout between them. I think when you hear about the salary cap squeeze has just been mentioned in here as well. If you can get Kemp being that swingman, in my opinion, 100% better
100%
as a footballer than McGovern. So I think that could be huge. Like here,
Tom,
I wouldn't read into the $1 million for TDK. I think if anyone offers him more than 500k this year on the back of 8 good games this year, I think you're high. To be honest, I think Ken Collins was high. I think that Carlton don't offer contracts anymore on potential. It'll be a 3-year extension at about 550. So we got 4 minutes before teams. Obviously, let's have some predictions in chat. Boyd is definitely out, obviously with the injury. I believe Owies has been ruled out as well. That there's a little bit of a setback with his foot. So you know there's going to be one change. What's your predicted changes this week?
It's kind of a tough one, Pom. Are we assuming Wiedering's healthy and coming back in?
I wasn't unfortunately at training, but everyone who's PM'd me has gone. He was there, no strapping. I think this is the game you bring him in, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, if Wiedering plays, it's very simple. It's Boyd for Wiedering, and you play Plowman as a small. Potentially guys who are competing for a position. Setterfield was the sub. Obviously, they generally back in sub, but I think we could see just the one change this week. Wiedering for Boyd, play Plowman as the small, which we've seen him do pretty consistently over his journey at the Blues. I think it'll be an interesting game. Do you have any different predicted changes, Pom?
If I was picking the team, I would go...
Chera's the other one, isn't he?
I would go Motlop out, Chera in.
Yeah.
And I would go Boyd out, Wiedering in, and play Plowman, like you say, on the small.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting as well. One of the rotations, which is the most complex at Carlton, and no one talks about it, is Doc, Newman, all play at half-back flank, but then one goes up to the wing, one slots into the back pocket. So I think if you bring Chera in as the extra, I think you are totally fine in the terms of you've got that extra wing rotation, which means they just simply play Newman in that back pocket role, and Doc doesn't get the up the ground role, and you've got that. So that is,
and then Fisher spends a bit more time forward.
Yeah, personally, that's what I would do. I don't know what the chat think. I mean, the chat are going, Stocker, obviously, very good game in the VFL, 30 touches, which is what, 22 if you take away his kick-ins, which still is a fuckload of the ball, I might add. It's a lot of the ball.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, he would be a shout if Foss wants to go like for like.
Yeah, if you want to go like for like, but then what do you do with Plowman? I think that's an interesting question. That was his role for so long. I've seen a question in chat. Pom J. Dot is asking, is Boyd a spud? And if you'd asked me 13 weeks ago, I would have said yes. But geez, he has turned me around. Has Boyd? Jordan Boyd picked up and quoted to be a half forward, which he wasn't. He's always been a dour defender. He's come in, he's beaten out Liam Stocker, who we had really high hopes for that role that Zach Williams played in the first few weeks. He's not a spud. That kid has a drive and an aggression in him, but he plays disciplined. He is certainly part of the future of this club, which is not something I would have thought 13, 14 weeks ago.
I like Boydie. I think it's a very tough role. Playing the back pocket. It's a very underrated role in the AFL. And I think he does a very good job. We've obviously got an Arsenal fan here, Gabriel Jesus and Vieira in. They wouldn't be so bad this weekend. A lot of talk about Owies. I always think Owies gets a hard rap because if you ask any AFL coach and particularly any development coach, what's their number one facet they're looking for a small forward? It's tackle pressure. And he is the number one tackle forward 50 pressure and the number one tackler inside 50. So theoretically, could be the best. I believe the teams are in.
The team is in, Pom. The team is in. I'm happy to read it out.
I'll bring it in.
It's a very simple change, Pom, and those playing at home. In, Adam Chera. Out, Jordan Boyd and Will Setterfield dropped from the sub as my dog is losing its mind behind me. Will Setterfield dropped from the sub. So, yeah, Adam Chera in for Jordan Boyd. They've given Wiedering another week of rest, which, maybe they're underrating St Kilda a little, but maybe they're just thinking this should be a win at Marvel Stadium for us.
Well, I mean, I don't mind it, the one change. I really don't mind it for one reason, really. I think Kent probably deserves another go. But I also think the big one for me is finals is coming up. Do you want to risk him if he's 80%?
No, exactly right, Pom. If he's 100%, if he's not 100%, why play him? Young stepped up. It gives Kemp another opportunity to be that second tall, which will be interesting because the Saints have made some changes. I'm happy to read those out as well as they load in.
Away.
All right, so for St Kilda, they've made 4 changes. In Bradley Hill, which gives them some relief in the Jack Sinclair role in defence. In Jack Higgins, dangerous small forward. In Mason Wood, who they've been playing on the wing and half forward. And in Paddy Ryder to help out Rowan Marshall, who signed I think a 5-year extension this week. Out goes Ben Long, Ben Patton, Cooper Sharman, Darragh Joyce, and Ryan Burns. So they're playing a relatively healthy and full best 22 this week against us. They're desperate to win this one, Pom.
Mate, spot on. I mean, it's not a surprise their changes, but and I agree here with what Alex has said. I think the fact that Kemp's performance from one quarter on was absolutely splendid. But I mean, looking at what they've brought in, Brad Hill, do you know what I mean? He had the week off, I believe, wasn't it? Was it personal issues last week? You've got Jack Higgins, who is a threat for them. Mason Wood and Paddy Ryder. I mean, the Ryder's going to be talked up, I think, by the press because for the last 4 weeks we've heard Carlton are small down the back, and the way to attack them is, I mean, the interesting thing about if you watch St Kilda play, for a side that was the number one ranked side at efficiency inside 50 over the first 6 rounds, now we're way in the bottom 4 of that. There's nothing there that says that'll change. That is a lot more their ball movement and ball retention. And I do think Bradley Hill is probably one of the biggest ones who's guilty of that as well. Brad Hill is one of them very, very guilty passengers there. It's a good side they've picked. It's a good side. I am surprised they've taken Patton out there because I do think that they've robbed defensive skill for a bit more pace, which I don't think personally is the way I would have attacked our team. But a lot on here because St Kilda know they lose this game, finals is out. And I think finals is already out looking at their games, but Carlton win this one, game over.
We want to win this one. Young goes to Max King. No worries about that. It's going to be interesting. Tim Membry's dangerous. He likes playing against us. So do you put a Kemp on him or do you put a Plowman on him? One of them has to take on the resting Rowan Marshall and Paddy Ryder, who certainly outsize Tim Membry, but probably don't outskill Tim Membry. I think that Membry matchup is going to be a really, really interesting one to watch in our defense. But then you look to our attack, and really that's where we've made our name over the last little while is kicking goals. they've got Wilkie and Howard and Josh Battle. I'm not sure that they can take on the trio of Silvani, Mackay, Curnow, and then hopefully a Josh Honey pops up as well. I'm just not. I'm more confident in our defense to make up the difference than their defense to make up the difference based on recent weeks.
Mate, spot on. I think the biggest thing that you worry about, Carlton, is defensive transition. And we touched on it last week, why we were confident with Fremantle, because they were really poor at defensive transition, one of the worst sides in the comp. St Kilda are below them, and West Coast at the bottom with North. I think this is a great 3 weeks for Carlton to really get that confidence of attacking. The biggest staple last week was 17 inside 50 tackles. You do that against this side, they could play Tony Lockett at full forward. It's not going to get there. And some comments here about winning the ball around the source, something that me and Paolo banged the drum of. I'm actually surprised in what they've picked in the terms of, I think their biggest problem is getting it and spreading. And with Chera coming in there, that just makes Carlton an even different kettle of fish, because they can really spread fast with the likes of Chera, with the likes of Fish. I don't know what the audience feel and what you feel. I'd love to see this game, see Fisher, Chera in the same rotation at one point and really look to go a little bit smaller and really take the game to them.
Yeah, look, I'd love to see that. They've named Fisher on a wing this week, which, who knows if he actually lines up there, but it's an interesting little caveat to his career. If we can add some more, if they want him in the midfield, I think you have to find a way to get him involved with a Chera and with a Walsh, because it can be a pretty dangerous combination. Zach Fish had a very good game last week, 29, and we know he can push forward and score goals, and that's probably the little card they're keeping in their back pocket. So I'm excited to see it. Pom, I wanted to answer one question I've seen in the chat. A few people in the chat have been answering. Harry has asked, can someone tell me how Jesse Motlop keeps getting game when he's done nothing? I think there's a couple of answers to this question. One is we're still a young team and development of players is really important. Two, this is a side that's shown they're not going to play players out of position. So the next best small forward that's available behind Matt Owies is currently Jesse Motlop. No one else has put their hand up for that role. So they're going to play the next best person in that role, rather than what we've seen, Pom, in previous coaching tenures, which was the 23rd best player would come into the team rather than the next best player in that role.
Mate, spot on. And I thought that, last week, the game, the midfield will take the kudos, but genuinely, there's no getting away from it. Forward pressure has won the last 15 flags. It is an archetype ever since Mr. Clarkson came into the competition. It's something that he was very hot on. It was the biggest priority for his training. Hardwick raves about it. You see it every week, and you saw it. Melbourne's performance last week against Brisbane was probably the most tastiest performance until we played.
I don't know if Pom or me has lagged out here. You there, Pom?
Can you hear me?
Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, very good. I can hear you.
Yeah, Melbourne's game last week I thought was sensational. Absolutely sensational. And it was forward pressure, destroyed Brisbane. We did the same at Freo. So I think, to answer your question, Motlop is that next best player there. In the reserves, we've literally taken all the forwards.
Yeah, and all the defenders.
So
we've got some wingers left over.
Yeah, we've got a few. Before we go, the predictions next for this week. What are we going, chat, and what are we going, Mr. Leckdog?
This is one I'm more confident in than I've been in other weeks. It helps that it's at Marvel Stadium. I think we're a better side. I think St Kilda have overperformed to this point in the year. So I'm going to tip us by, I'm going to say 5 goals. I'm going to say 30 points. I predict big games as per usual from the likes of Charlie and Sam Walsh. Who am I going to give best onto though, Pom? I like to go obscure with my best ons. I think we're going to come out of this game and say Tom De Koning against Paddy Ryder and Rowan Marshall taught them an absolute lesson, and it was crazy that he was able to take on both of them. So I'm going to go Tom De Koning for my best on.
Okay, I'm going Carlton by 32. Best on, Jack Silvani.
I like it. I support it. Jack Silvani, I think, is a decent second option to Tom De Koning because they're going to play a similar role, and we know he can link up really well, particularly at Marvel. Is there anyone in the chat that's got some hot takes for the team show? We had some really good ones last week, Pom.
Right, let's have a hot take. What is, everyone in chat, your prediction for the story of this game? So someone who's not the superstar like last week, you could argue Matty Cottrell was the superstar without really getting the kudos. Who do you think is going to be that guy that really has a breakout game this week?
Breakout game. That's a great question. I think Josh Honey. I think Josh Honey's got his lips wet last week. I think this is the week we see him maybe snag a couple of goals. Had an opportunity late in the game last week to hit the scoreboard, and I think we'd concede that if he did kick that goal in the fourth, people would have looked at his game a little differently. I think if he brings the same heat and the same pressure, we're going to see him convert a couple of those opportunities and have a career best game.
Mate, I love it. I've got a lot of time for it. I'm going to go here. I'm going to back Christian in here. I think Kemp is going to have a really big game. Taper up the intercept marks and really set us off the back on transition. And everyone's going to get a bit excited by Kempy by the end of the game.
No, I think that's a really good call. One thing I want to shout out, Pom, before we wrap up, I know we're running a little over time. 3 teams so far this year haven't conceded 100 points. One of them's Carlton, one of them's Melbourne, one of them's Fremantle. I think we continue that streak this week. It's been a very good defensive unit this year, considering the fact that probably 3 or 4 of our best defenders aren't even available.
Mate, we're very impressive. Big shout out to the midfield. Remember, if you're heading down there, stay safe. Don't forget to woof facade.
Right.
Spot on. Enjoy it. If you can't get down there or you've got the lurgy like your Uncle Pom, come and tune in to me. Friday night. Tomorrow, I will be up and about. I'm going to go to bed early tonight, drink a lot of lemon, and I'll be good. You can catch Lek Dog on anything that's fantasy, the Jock Reynolds podcast, or in pubs when he should be on the live watch along with Pom. And until next week and until tomorrow, much love. See you next week.
Go Blues. If you see me at the game tomorrow, come and say good day.